Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to go over some logistics for today's event. We're pleased to provide live captioning for this webinar. We will be speaking in English, but if you'd like to see captions in another language, please go through the following steps that are also on screen. So to turn on live captions, go to the Meeting Controls panel at the top of your screen and select More, represented by the three dots. Then choose Language and Speech, and then select the option to turn on live captions. The captions will appear at the bottom of your screen below the webinar slides. To change the language your captions appear in, select the Settings button near the captions, and then select Caption Language to choose the language you'd like the captions to be translated to. Please also note that this webinar is being recorded and that the recording will be shared on the NPI EXPAND website after today's event. You'll also find a link to the website in the Q&A box shortly. And finally, we encourage all attendees to submit questions for today's panelists at any time throughout the webinar using that questions and answer box at the top of your screen. Our team behind the scenes will be collecting those questions for the Q&A portion of the webinar. I'll now turn it over to Jeff Barnes, our project director, to kick things off. Over to you, Jeff.
Great, thanks, thanks, Samantha. Welcome, everybody. I'm happy to have you with us today for our fourth webinar in the Lessons in Localization series. Slide. Just to give us a little bit of context, just as a reminder, EXPAND is a global project. We started in 2019. We are now in our final year. We've worked in the countries you see on the screen in a variety of areas, but a grants component was a critical element in all of these country programs. Slide. As I mentioned, this is the fourth in the series. We've got 4 more to go, and we're trying to cover as many different aspects of localization as we can. Indirect cost recovery, resource mobilization, gender mainstreaming, and capacity strengthening. So just to provide some context on our subaward activities and why it was such an important component, one of the important elements of this program was to maximize the amount of resources we put in the hands of local organizations. We were asked to provide between 50 and 70% of project funds in subawards. Currently, we've issued over 190 subawards to 90 different organizations. And to date, they've spent $33 million through those subawards, which represents 54% of total project spending. So as you can see, that's quite a significant component of the project, and this is why we had to devote a lot of time thinking about our grant strategy and our grants processes. There were a lot of implementation issues along the way. We don't pretend that what we did are necessarily best practices. But for that reason, and perhaps as well, it's also a good opportunity for organizational learning, which is why we're sharing our experiences. So to provide some background on and more details on our grant strategy and our grants processes, I'm going to ask Josh Zuloff to give a short presentation going into that and explaining what we did and why. Over to you, Josh.
Thanks, Jeff. Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Zuloff, and I'm a grants manager here at Palladium on the NPI EXPAND project. Happy to be with you this morning. Slide. So we'll be going over a short overview of our subawards strategy and subawarding process. So our subaward strategy, essentially, we're a global buy-in cooperative agreement in which a USAID mission in country would make an investment in our project and develop a certain scope through a co-creation activity with various stakeholders within the country. We would select an engagement strategy and then issue either an EOI or a direct engagement strategy, and select our subrecipients through a variety of mechanisms. Implement a pre-award negotiation phase in which a project description with the subrecipient and a milestone table and outcomes and objectives would be established. We'd enter into a grant agreement or a subaward agreement with them. The subawardee would implement the project, and eventually we would close it out. And we repeated this process in a variety of countries based on USAID buy-ins. We extensively use the fixed amount award subaward mechanism for a variety of reasons, in which we'll go into later in the presentation. Slide. So the types of engagement strategies EXPAND has used to enter into subawards with subrecipients. We've had targeted engagements in which the USAID mission buying into the project would more or less instruct us to target a certain NGO in country. We've had limited engagements in which there'd be selection criteria or a pre-established list of NGOs within a country in which we would limit our engagement with. And then we've had what we call open competition, in which any registered NGO within a country would be able to respond to solicitation or request for applications, in which we'd convene a merit review board with various stakeholders, and then rank and weigh all received applications based on pre-established criteria, and move forward with shortlisted applicants. So we've had a variety of different ways in which we engaged civil society organizations in the countries in which we worked in. So what is the fixed amount subaward mechanism? Based on the traditional cost reimbursable type award, in which subrecipients submit full supporting documentation and then are retroactively reimbursed and or given an advance based on projected expenditures. The fixed amount award mechanism, it's a subawarding mechanism with clearly defined and performance-based milestones which are implemented, and once those milestones are achieved, there's a pre-negotiated payment that is dispersed to the subawardee. They generally can't exceed the 3-year period of performance, and during EXPAND's period of performance, we were limited to the simple acquisition threshold of $250,000. And generally, the budget is negotiated and verified through supporting documentation pre-award. So concurrently, while the NPI EXPAND technical staff works with the subrecipient to finalize a scope of work with objectives and outcomes and milestones leading up to them, the NPI EXPAND grants management staff would work with the subrecipient to come up with a budget that matches that, and then use a variety of techniques to substantiate it, and more or less lock it in to create those milestones. Slide. So the benefits of this form of subawarding, it could be ideal for a potential subrecipient that's never received U.S. government funding before. They may be nascent or operationally or financially, smaller, may not have the financial and compliance infrastructure in place to be able to responsibly or effectively manage a traditional cost reimbursable grant. It reduces audit risk due to a pay for performance or pay for outcomes type of mechanism. It simplifies administration for the subrecipient. Again, they don't have to worry about receipts and invoices and documentation. They can focus on implementing the activities, and all of that work is kind of administratively accomplished pre-award. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the budget for a fixed amount subaward is kind of verified pre-award. So a subrecipient, whether they were responding to a request for applications or other solicitation opportunity, they would draft a budget and a budget narrative along with their application and project description. And the NPI EXPAND grants management staff would work with them just for a general review of allowability, reasonableness, completeness, things like that. And we've engaged with them and collect a variety of supporting documentation to verify the proposed costs in the budget pre-award. So for staff level of effort, we would look at market research and have staff employment contracts. We would do market research for travel. For workshops, we would ask the subrecipient to submit pro forma invoices for venue rental space and catering and transportation and things like that. So the grants management staff here would assist the subrecipient in those cost research. Sometimes we would do cost research ourselves. But there's generally a fairly high level of scrutiny to substantiate and verify those costs pre-award and lock that budget in. And we'd be able to kind of create and price milestones accordingly. Next slide. Right, so when we create and price milestones, the NPI EXPAND technical and grants management staff, will collaborate with the subrecipient to create milestones. So there's a lot of input and feedback from the subrecipient during the pre-award stage to align on what these might look like. But in general, they're more of an output or a result, and instead of an activity or a process. They can be verified through examination or documentation. During the earlier years of EXPAND's period of performance, we were kind of bound by some of the monitoring we could do due to COVID. So we did a lot of desk monitoring, and we kind of crafted our milestones accordingly. They have well-defined technical and quality standards and are achievable during the period of performance. And generally within the control, within reason, given an absence of outside circumstances, they're achievable to be accomplished by the subrecipient during the period of performance. With some flexibility, we generally have like a 2-week window in which we'd ask the subrecipients to submit the pre-negotiated milestones. But during implementation, things happen, and we would always be able to modify the timeline and have that flexibility. Next slide. So some examples of the milestones that from our grants or subaward portfolio would be communication activities or training activities. So a lot of our milestones are 2 steps, one milestone for a communications plan, and then another subsequent milestone for after the activity has been completed. Trainings, we would ask for the training curriculum, and work with the subrecipient on improving that, and then another subsequent milestone for when the event took place, and there'd be different deliverables and criteria for each milestones. In regards to pricing, milestones are based, it's more of an art than a science. It's a strategy. They're the costs and expenses incurred by the subrecipient to implement the milestone, along with a working capital element to allow them to continue implementing. Even in a perfect world, we can pay net 20 or net 30 days, but we want to provide some capital to allow the subrecipient to keep implementing the subsequent activity. Next slide. Great. So during the implementation phase, the subrecipient would implement activities and then submit milestones once they're accomplished for technical review and payment. In many instances, NPI EXPAND had in-country staff that conduct some monitoring, technical assistance, and have the experience needed to verify and approve the milestones. And then they would ultimately be approved and paid, and implementation would go on. So what could go wrong? It's a very simple process. During NPI EXPAND's period of performance, we had global pandemics, multiple coups in multiple countries, hyperinflation, administration changes both in the U.S. and in the countries we operate, government shutdowns both in the U.S. and the countries in which we operate, natural disasters, political unrest. It continues. So one advantage of the fixed amount award mechanism is that it's simple, it's focused on implementation, it's flexible, and we have the ability to monitor the timelines to the extent possible and change deliverables based on extenuating circumstances. So there is that flexibility made in the mechanism, and we felt, the impacts of all those things described. Next slide. So once all the milestones completed, another benefit of the fixed amount award mechanism, there's not a large amount of administrative tasks to be completed at closeout. And once the final milestone is completed and approved and paid, there's no large financial reconciliation, or they're inauditable, so there's no subsequent audit on the project. And the subaward's basically considered closed with a basic closeout letter and a compliance statement. Due to the constraints that we were bound by due to term and the size of the subaward, many of our subrecipients received consecutive one after the other type arrangement with fixed amount awards, or if we had a very large program, they would receive concurrent awards based on activity themes, some for technical implementation and some for capacity development and things like that. And a final benefit, activities could be paused and restarted based on project needs. There was no need, as you would under a traditional cost reimbursable award, to keep it open due to the administrative complexity of those traditional awards. So we can, quickly engage a subrecipient to implement some activities and then a year later re-engage them with some of the same pre-award due diligence that's still on file and still relevant. Next slide. So some of the challenges we experienced during our period of performance as it relates to our subawarding activities were kind of drawn out co-creation activities in a variety of countries. We'd have a USAID mission buy-in, and the exact scope of what NPI EXPAND was going to do and what our subrecipients were going to do would be unclear for an extended period of time. And due to the FAA mechanism, we weren't allowed to fund those co-creation activities in which the subrecipients were often stakeholders in. Due to the constraints that we described about the mechanism, we had kind of excessive or successive subawards due to the size of the program. And that created challenges from a budgeting and administrative standpoint. If you have multiple awards with individual staff members from the subrecipient charging to each award, and perhaps there was other funding from other agencies also in the mix, it became complex to try to substantiate budgets pre-award. And then we also had a lot of collaborative, activities and programming within our project. So we had consortium agreements and subrecipients of subrecipients. And the fixed amount award, I believe we kind of pushed the boundaries of what is possible and what is advised during those types of situations, where there would be a lead organization and then some follow-on organization of what fund transfers and compliance flow down mechanism would look like. Next slide. Along with our challenges, we had some successes, if we say so ourselves. One is the use of the fixed amount award subaward for capacity strengthening. We were able to issue them to subrecipients who were then able to get technical assistance from outside organizations to strengthen their capacity for follow-on activities. We were able to issue awards to other organizations that verified the activities of our primary subaward. So kind of monitoring, so to speak. Rapid implementation. I think the administrative simplicity of the mechanism kind of lended itself to some of our activities, both from USAID expectations on timeline, and then we did do some COVID-19 response activities, which the activities themselves were fairly rote and simple, and we had subrecipients that were willing to partner with us, and we were able to actually, implement activities, in the environment, quickly based on the merits of the award. And then, as previously mentioned, the risk reduction element for NPI EXPAND was significant. We worked with a lot of nascent or what could be categorized as lower capacity organizations that don't have the financial infrastructure to responsibly handle, U.S. government funding, but they were able to do so under the fixed amount award mechanism with technical assistance from NPI EXPAND. So expanding those organizations, fundraising portfolios and the management of donor funds. Next slide. Thank you for listening to our presentation and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thanks, Josh. I don't know. So we have one question from the audience. First is, and let me also introduce Francia at this time as well. I can maybe get her involved in providing some of the answers. Francia is our grants director and is responsible for a lot of, well, pretty much all of what we've done under this component. So Francia, I'll ask you to also participate in the question and answer portion here. How do you creatively work around the 2 CFR 200-333, a limitation of FAA subawards to the simplified acquisition threshold? Hopefully this limitation is going away soon from the CFR, but during the life of our project, we did have this limitation. You want to take that, Francia?
Yes. When we began the project, we decided to use the instrument of the fixed amount subawards, and we were aware of the limitation of the 250K. At that time, there was a lot of conversation and strategy and discussions on why use this FFA mechanism. We believe that that was the most reliable, and at that time, the mechanism that will help these nascent organizations that we were going to work with to get familiar with that USAID rules and regulations, that was easier for them to deliver the objectives of the interventions that we were working with. So that mechanism was the most, I will say, reliable and also easy for the NGO to understand and work with us. They did not have to have a NUPAS. They did not have to go through a lot of scrutiny, and we put templates and conditions and different instruments for them to understand the mechanism and why it was only up to 250. So I think the project decided to go with the simplified threshold for this mechanism, due to also these organizations did not have a lot of experience previously to implement larger subawards.
Great. This is another specific question about some of the back and forth at the time of grant development, and whether we had any trouble substantiating subrecipient salary rates, and particularly whether grantees ever pushed back on providing employment contracts or things of that sort.
No, I think at the beginning, when we engaged with any local partner and we were going to be awarding a subaward, we will have discussions and explain to the grantees at that time the importance of providing these documents. We did not, I think once we encounter that the subrecipient did not want to provide those supporting documentations like employment contracts, but for the most part, all the subrecipients that we work with in the 11 countries that we work on NPI EXPAND, they were very collaborative. They were willing to learn. They wanted to find out more about the rules and regulations, especially because these local organizations also understood that this is the time for them to capture and learn about US funding. And they were very participatory everything that we did with the local organizations, we involved them from the beginning so that they can own the activity and also learn about the rules and regulations of the donor USA.
Great, thanks, Francia. We have a lot of questions coming in. I think some of these we'll pick up later in the discussion. There's just one other question I want to ask maybe both you and Josh about, which has to do with really getting the awardees through the process. I know most of the grantees, most of the awardees of NPI EXPAND were new to the fixed award mechanism. What steps did you undertake to ensure they understood all the ins and outs of the FAA and some of the risks that they would be taking and some of the challenges they might face? Josh,
Well,
do you want to start, or Francia,
okay.
whoever? Sorry,
Thanks,
go ahead,
Jeff.
Francia. Whoever.
No, I would think it's a great question. And the NPI EXPAND grants management team, we did provide a lot of technical support to the subrecipients throughout the process, both from written guidance in the request for application process, guidance shared in general overview of the process and what it would entail during applicant conferences during the time the solicitation was actually live. And then once we had our shortlisted applicants kind of identified, there would be a component and technical assistance along the way. I think Francia answered the previous questions, really spot on. I just echo that about the technical assistance and the back and forth during the budget development phase and during the implementation phase. So there were a lot of subrecipients that were new to implementing grant funding, particularly from U.S. government. So there was that technical assistance component that was usually in pretty lockstep. Thank you.
Great. You want to add to that, Francia?
Yes, there was a lot of back and forth between the local organizations and the grants management team, not only at HQ, but also on the ground where we have our field staff working with the grantee very closely. But I will say that at the time of the RFA, we were very clear with the grantees when we issued the request for application by providing them with application templates, budget templates, and also budget narratives. And at that time, that was when the back and forth came with the grantee, because some of them have a lot of questions and a lot of clarifications that we answered through the question that they submitted, and also in the conference meetings that we had. But after they started putting together the application and getting ready for submitting those to us, there were still questions, and they needed more guidance on the type of mechanism, why we requested all these documentations for the budget, for the cost units in the budget. There was a lot of education that was done at that time of the pre-award level to make sure that the grantee understood the conditions of the grant making process, and also how this was going to help them to obtain the results of the program description that was given under that request for application. Another thing that happened was the budgets. They will send the budgets, and we review the budget. We see that some of the costs that were in the budget did not align with the application. So we have to go back and forth with them and explain to them until we got it to the final version of the budgets. And it was a combination of technical expertise, but also grants management team working together to make sure that the subrecipients receive the right information, so that we can streamline a little bit the time that it took with the back and forth with the grantees and the education and training part and capacity strengthening.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Francia. So maybe at this point, it would be a good idea to hear directly from some of our grantees and some of our grants officers in the field on this specific question. Let me first introduce our panelists. We've got from two of our country programs. First, from India, we have Arun Kumar, who's the Director of Operations for C3, or the Center for Catalyzing Change. And the NPI EXPAND grants coordinator is Sonia Sandu, who is also joining us online. Please, all the panelists, please turn on your camera. From Ethiopia, we have Alazar Emiru, who's the Grants Finance and Admin Director for MHD, or Mahipere Hiwot for Social Development, and our Grants Coordinator, Dejene Alimu, also from NPI EXPAND Ethiopia. So maybe I'm going to start with a question for our grants officers, picking up on what Francia was saying. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did with your, at this point, prospective grantees to coach them through the process of the FAA and how the FAA would work? What did you do during that initial phase? I'll start with you, Sonia.
So first of all, well, as per our internal Palladium policy, within 1 week of fully execution of a subaward with our subrecipients, we should schedule a grants kickoff meeting with the recipient. Yeah. So in that grants kickoff meeting, we requested them to involve individuals from the leadership team, project management team, finance team, as well as from the operation management team. Yeah, so the main purpose of this grants kickoff meeting is to orient them about the compliances, principles, rule and regulation related to that particular subaward. And the main goal is to orient them about the fixed amount award mechanism, how they will report the completed milestones, why they need to take care the duration of the awards and the due dates of each milestones, how they will submit the documents to us, and against that, how we will process the payments to the subrecipients. We also share with them the brief about the compliances against the procurement and supplies, as well as sharing the guideline document for branding and marketing things. Yeah. Also on whenever they will submit any reports, progress reports, or any other document, what type of communication protocol they should follow during the implementation award, that also we can orient them. Not only at the initial stage of the award, during the implementation also, after signing the subaward with the subrecipient, we also schedule a regular fortnightly meetings with the guarantees individually and separately. And in that fortnightly meeting, we discussed with them about the progress of those milestones, and also if any challenges the subrecipient faced during the implementation, that also we are discussing with them. Yeah, and also share the guidance and the support if required during the implementation. And sometimes during the implementation, the core team member of the project was changed. Yeah, they left the organization or maybe allocated to another project. So at that time also we are reoriented the team about the compliances, about the grants compliances and project compliances, so that not only in the initial phase but also during the implementation we will monitor and orient our guarantees so that we will 100% compliance with the project.
Great. So, Dejene, do you want to tell us a little bit, because you had more grantees in Ethiopia. What did you do at the orientation stage?
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, we have 7 subrecipients in Ethiopia. Just what we did is starting from the co-creation workshop and the applicants conference. We have been provided a lot of support to our subrecipients. Like, for example, during the applicants conference meeting, we have been provided a lot of guidances with regard to the FAA grant approach, what was the requirement, what an FAA reporting requirement and payment modalities, and also the key compliance and how to maintain the due date of the FA grant approach. We have been provided this, and also during the application review process, of course, it's already mentioned there are a lot of back-end forces. During those back-end forces, we have been provided a lot of technical assistance to our sub-recipients, like, for example, how to just write an application with response to the RFA. I mean, the RFA, the criteria already mentioned in the RFA, how to align with that, and also to prepare the budget, what are the key elements that they should have to consider to prepare a realistic budget, and also how to just back up or support costs with relevant supporting documents. So we have been provided such kind of technical assistance during the application and review process. Of course, during the kickoff meeting, also we have been just a kind of just brainwashing, because you already provided all the relevant guidance as a bidders applicant conference and also and the application review process. But during the kickoff, we have just provided additional updates. There was some additional new staff recruited from sub-recipient side. Just we have been repeating the same what we already familiarized earlier. So during this process, we have provided a lot of capacity support to our sub-recipients. Of course, as I already mentioned, as already Sonia mentioned, these are some of the support that we provided.
Okay, great. So let's move to our grantees and also allow our grantees to present themselves and their organizations. Alizar, I don't see your camera on. If you could turn on your camera. I'm not sure who, can we go, who goes first here as Alizar? There we go. Alizar, you want to turn on your camera? Tell us a little bit about your organization, and then I'm going to pick up the question in terms of your perception of that process, how difficult it was. There you go. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm another Nuru from Mahabarat for Social Development. It is one of the grantees for this fixed amount award that we get from the NPI EXPAND. Just to brief the organization, Mahabarat for Social Development is established in 1999 and registered as a national civil society organization in 2004. Again, Mahabarat for Social Development is operational across 7 regions in Ethiopia. Basically, we are operating under the Amara region, Benishangul Gumuz, Addis Ababa, Oromia, Sidama, the Southern Nations, Nationalities and Peoples regions, and Tigray. And our headquarters is located in the capital, Addis, and we have area offices at Bahar Dar, which is the capital of the Amara region, Asosa, which is the capital of the Benishangul Gumuz, Mekelle, which is the capital of Tigray region, and Desse is another city in the Amara region. And we have 31 project offices located in different geographic locations with 268 full-time staffs working under different projects. Regarding the area of focus or our thematic areas, we are working under these thematic areas listed. We work for under health, social mobilization, education, migration and trafficking, children, child care and development, human rights and good governance, humanitarian and emergency response projects, and environment and climate related projects or thematic areas. These are our basic areas of focus, and you can see that MSD is everywhere. Next slide, Jeff.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Can you see the slide?
I don't see the next slide, Jeff.
It's there for your mission, vision,
Okay.
and values. Yeah.
It's not displayed in my dashboard, but okay, let me continue. I think the next slide is about the mission, the vision, and the values of MSD. Yeah, the mission of MSD is to see the next generation, the youth, to equip with capabilities and knowledge, and to participate in the economic and social, to increase their social participation in the community, and to contribute the social well-being of the country. Regarding the vision, our intention is to work with the stakeholders in identifying the needs and providing support and services to the new generation, the youth and the children, with the education, health, skill, and assets to access the opportunities and become agents for the socio-economic well-being of the country. So regarding the values, integrity, transparency, voluntarism, diversity and inclusion, partnership and communication, responsibility and accountability, care for the environment, learning and growth, and all these are the values that we exercise in each step of our project implementation.
Great. Now let's move to the question, Alazar, before we go to Aaron. Just share your perspective on the process that was described. Did you find the process too long? Was it frustrating? Was the coaching helpful? Just share what your view was on that.
Okay, thank you. Normally, to reach at the subaward stage, we were expected to pass through many steps, and if you look into the process or the grant negotiation steps, easy. But when you look into each steps, they were very helpful for us. Just to put it in a simple way, the steps that we have been through from the very beginning, NPI EXPAND announced the expression of interest using the local social media platform. In our case, it was EthioJobs, and we submitted the concept note. Then after the concept note is submitted, NPI EXPAND organized a co-creation workshop. Again, that co-creation workshop was very helpful because it helps us to understand the nature of the fixed amount award, the approach, and it helps us to set the priorities for the programs. Again, in addition, it helps us to identify the gaps related to the primary health delivery service, like the family planning and the maternal and newborn child health services. So using that co-creation, in addition to the setting the gaps, setting the priorities, and it helps us to familiarize ourselves with the policy and the procedures and the operations of the NPI EXPAND. And after that co-creation workshop, again, NPI EXPAND advertised RFA. Then, considering the requirements stated in the RFA, Subawards for Social Development prepared a formal project proposal. Then that project proposal is submitted and for the assessment by NPI EXPAND. Then after, NPI EXPAND organized a bidders conference. Again, that bidders conference helps us to understand to what extent the proposal assessment was transparent and to what extent that proposal assessment was done with high degree of curiosity. So then after, we proceed to getting the sub-award. But before that, we also pass through many steps regarding the pre-award assessment, like the due diligence, the sanction check, the debarment and suspension, the pre-award risk assessment. All these are done before the sub-award is provided to Subawards for Social Development. So when you look into all the steps, these were very important, and these are the steps which takes to the final stage. And in all these steps, there was a common understanding, and much help was provided from the NPI EXPAND regarding the proposal writing, regarding giving the statements of their policies and procedures, again notifying the nature of the fixed amount award. So even though it seems like lengthy, all the steps were very, very helpful.
Great, thank you. Okay, Aaron's been waiting patiently. Aaron from C3, please present your organization and then answer the same question. We want to hear about your perspective from about the process in India. I think your mute is on. Please turn off your mute button. There you go.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. My name is Arun Kumar. I'm working as a director of operations with Center for Catalyzing Change. We call ourselves C3, and C3 registered as a charitable organization in India, and then we are working in India for the last 35 years. We have our head office in New Delhi, and we have offices in 8 different states with 300 plus staff. C3 is working in 3 thematic areas: one, gender equity, girls' education and youth development, and reproductive health and rights. And C3 has been working on the issues impacting girls and women through community engagement and capacity building of alliances of youth, and by working with CSO and NGOs to strengthen the provision of FP information, commodities, and services. If you look at the vision of the C3 is a future in India where women and girls are fully empowered and enabled to realize their rights and opportunities and achieve gender equality. So if you look at the goal that the goal is to enable girls basically to stay in school, delay their marriage. It's a big issue in India. Pursue career aspiration and make informed decisions about their sexual and reproductive health. Now, we ensure that all the women are aware and can access livelihood opportunities, quality reproductive and maternal services, and respective care. Now, if you look at the specific project that we have, the current NPI project, the project is in our one of our state in Odisha. The objective of the projects are to improve the access of women, girls, young adult couples, youth, and women with disabilities to high quality family planning information and services, including addressing last mile issues and strengthening coalition of youth SRH, sexual reproductive health organization to support youth-led empowerment models to advocate for high quality FR/SRH services and empower and improve communities' capacity to hold the government system accountable for the delivery of high quality FP and RH information and services. Now, about the question that you have asked, I agree with Alzar. I was one of the team member actually who was interacted with Palladium from the initial stage. And in my case, actually, I feel that the process was indeed too long. There was too many back and forth questions were asked, responded. This may be due to the fact that we were interacting with the Palladium for the first time. We never had any project from the Palladium. I'll give you 2 scenarios where I think too much time was taken. First was the pre-award assessment form. Now, in that form, there was few categories and certain questions were asked. So there was no clarity on the form actually which question or category of question needs to be responded by the grantee and which question need to be responded by the Palladium. So we got somewhere confused, and then we asked, and then there was emails exchanged with Palladium. Ultimately, we responded to all those questions. And the second issue that we faced was collecting supporting documents for budgets. It was easy for some of the budget item, but I mean, there was issues where we are budgeting a activity which we have never done or we have not done in that particular geography. So it was difficult to get the supporting document. You can estimate the budget, you can talk to the peers, you can talk to persons there, but getting supporting document to support that budget was actually an issue. We try to do it, but still, I still feel that, I mean, we need to think it through, I mean, how to deal with that supporting document issue. The training and coaching, yes, it was helpful. It helped us to understand the Palladium perspective and the nitty-gritty of the process, and that was good. But I still feel that I mean, there could be a guideline in simple language. I mean, we may not use, see, if you use USAID circular number so and so, circular number so and so, these all are very big circulars. I mean, to read those 300 pages circular is going to be a difficult task. So if you can come up with a simple guidelines with what is required from the grantee, I think that is going to be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Had C3 ever implemented a fixed amount award prior to this one?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
We did few. Yeah, we did few of them. But in that FAA, I mean, they never asked for the supporting documents to support all the budgets. So they asked the justification for each and every cost that we did it, but not the supporting. The supporting document was first with Palladium, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think you were one of the few that had some familiarity with it, but there was a lot of back and forth. I remember, particularly on the technical design. So, and sometimes that's just unavoidable. Let's talk a little bit about the milestone process. Josh had a good slide that kind of presented all the considerations that go into defining a milestone. Maybe Dejene and Sonia, please turn your cameras on. Did you have any examples of where there were some difficulties in the process of defining milestones at the grant stage, or were there problems during implementation about how milestones were defined? I'll start with you, Dejene.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, actually, there is no such problem encountered at the time of defining the milestone. In our case, the milestone was defined based on the subrecipient's technical application and work plan. And before we were moving to the agreement stage, we sent the milestone deliverable developed by the NPI EXPAND for the grantee for their review and concurrence. Once they review and provide us their concurrence, we just move to an agreement stage. So during this process, our subrecipients are well aware of the detailed deliverables, the milestone deliverables, the milestone due date, and the payment amount. So things are already cleared in advance. So during the implementation, there is no such a problem encountered. Of course, this can be proved as, you know, we have been implementing for 60 months or 1 year and a half so far. All the 6 grantees implemented nearly 16 milestones, all of them submitted as per the due date without any problem. So no extension or delays happened. We feel that our process is smooth and our grantees are on the right track. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonia?
Yeah, Jeff. Yeah, if I'm talking about India thing, so yeah, definitely not with all the guarantees, but yeah, with one of our guarantee, we faced difficulties because milestones were not well defined or well understood by the recipient. This issue mainly comes with the subrecipient who is managing the fixed amount award first time. So a few challenges I just want to share with you all. Like the milestones and their deliverables are too lengthy, and based on that, the time taking to complete those milestones are not possible within the prescribed due date. And if, as we know, that fixed amount award is based on the pay for results mechanism. So if they unable to submit the completion milestones document with us, then they can't raise any invoice against that. Yeah, so definitely one is the reason that the lots of deliverables to accomplish that particular milestone. Another one is when they are setting milestones, at that time they didn't consider the ground realities. Yeah, like when we are proposing something, implementing the ground reality may be different. Yeah, at the time of actual implementation of those activities and conducting those trainings. So definitely we need to consider these factors in which geography we are working. So that can be considered. Another one is related to the targets. The guarantee is too much ambitious to complete the targets, and due to that during the implementation they faced challenges, like when they conducted the trainings in the field, the positions are vacant, the staff deputed in another location, and the participants who invited for that particular training was absent on that day. Yeah, so that's why the subrecipient was unable to fulfill the targets, and due to that the milestone was not completed by them. So these are some challenges we definitely face during the implementation at India.
Great. Josh, maybe just at a higher level, what kind of lessons learned would you say that you can draw on, you've concluded from the experience, particularly with respect to, you know, what to avoid in milestones?
Thanks, Jeff. I think over the lessons learned, it would be ambiguity in some of the milestone outcomes, like what exactly are we trying to achieve? More specificity early on. You know, I think that would be a primary takeaway.
Right. Francie, anything to add to that?
Yes, I think that as Sonia mentioned before, sometimes when we are developing milestones with the grantees, the local organization is very ambitious to develop milestones to do more than perhaps the period of performance or the timing that they have to deliver the milestone is allowing them to do. So it's back and forth with them, trying to make them understand that once you put those deliverables in the milestones and you agree to it, and we all agree that this is the way we are going to implement, we want to make sure that you concur and that you are sure that you're going to be able to deliver. Of course, like Sonia said, later on, there are other issues outside of their control that doesn't allow that to happen. And this is when this flexible mechanism and instrument that we use, the fixed amount subaward, allow us to revise the milestone, revise the budget for the cost of that milestone, extend the due date of the milestone, justify why they are not able to deliver the milestone. So I think that we went through some of that, those challenges with our grantees, but
Right.
I think we caught them on time and we were able to solve them. And also it was like an education and a training capacity strengthening for the grantee, for the subawardee, for the recipient at the same time.
Yeah, I remember there was some cases where in setting an ambitious target, and maybe they said, well, we're going to train 1,000 community health workers, and they only trained 800, and they thought, well, you know, can't you still pay us? But the way the milestones are set up, it's kind of an all or nothing thing, and then we would have to do modification. I think that was one area that there was often confusion around that. Let's just turn to our grantees about any issues that you all experienced with milestones, any concerns, or anything positive. I know some people have told me in the past that working towards milestones helps them focus on what they need to achieve. Anything you'd like to share? Let's start with Alazar. You're on mute, Alazar. So we had it. There you go. Did you hear the question, Alizar?
Okay, Jeff, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
go ahead.
yes, I heard you. Okay. So normally regarding the milestone delivery, as Francia tries to explain, there may be some confusion. Some grants may be ambitious regarding the milestones to be delivered at the startup stage, but during the co-creation workshop, again, even after during the proposal development stage, there was a huge help from the NPI EXPAND side, and that discussion through the co-creation workshop and the RFA, the proposal development, it helps us to come to the same page and to understand the nature of the milestone. So after the agreement is signed, we all are on the same page regarding the what are the milestones, the activities required to be executed to realize the milestone. Again, we are clear with the deliverables to be submitted to NPI EXPAND after the milestones are delivered. So I think having this milestone-based performance is very important for the successful completion of the project, and it is again very helpful to realize the expected outcome from this project. So I think there was some challenge at the beginning, but through the process, all things were clarified, and we put all the team members on the same page. When I say team members, I'm referring to the project team members, the grant management team members, even the stakeholders, the government and the community. We all are on the same page. That creates the required focus for the delivery of the project. So that having a milestone-based requirement, having a milestone-based performance schedule or activity plan helps us to perform the project effectively and efficiently.
Great, thank you. Aaron, what about you in C3? Any issues with milestones or any challenges?
Thank you, Jeff. Milestone is not a new word in C3. Actually, we are very familiar with the milestone, and then we make milestone for each and every project that we implement. And I would say the milestone, basically, they are instrument for monitoring a project's development, evaluating performance according with the predetermined standards. So the milestone also helps project team focusing on major progress point in a project, which ultimately helps project managers with project planning and scheduling. So without milestone, if you're completing some task and project, then it becomes so draining that it makes work seem pointless. Now, breaking down big goals that you want to achieve into smaller ones and achievable tasks can be really helpful. So it always makes it easier to keep track of your progress and make it sustainable. As far as we are concerned, we never had any issue with the milestone. As setting milestone for each and every project, as I said, that is an integral part of our initial process for each and every program that we implement in India. So we are very fine with the milestones.
Right.
Thank you.
But there is certainly a risk in defining milestones where there are elements that you all don't control, right? I know, for example, when we're doing behavior change communications, we don't set a milestone around number of people who have adopted a new behavior because that's really beyond their control, but it's more about outputs, about number of people reached or campaigns conducted. Alizar, do you want to add something to that?
Yes, Jeff. Actually, it is with relating to the challenge of having a milestone-based contractual requirement or program delivery pattern. Sometimes you may face the unplanned need from the community, because when the milestone-based is followed, we know what deliverables are expected to be, or what activities are expected to be delivered to the at community level. But during the implementation period, some unplanned need may arise from the community, and that is the challenge. And I think I recommend if there is a contingency budget to accommodate if that unplanned need arise from the community is in line with the preset deliverables or the preset milestones.
Yeah. Maybe I'll turn that question back to Francia or Josh. Let's start with Francia. In theory, the milestone is supposed to stay defined, and it's either paid or not paid, or done or not done. But as we've seen, there are issues that come up in implementation. You know, you assume there are 1,000 community health workers out there to train, and then it turns out they don't even exist, or there's a smaller number. How do you address that? How do you build flexibility into the process to deal with the problems that are unforeseen at the time of planning that come up during implementation?
This is the time when we ask the technical team and the grantee to document the reality on the ground and what is happening and what are the facts that are contributing to that milestone not to be accomplished. So at that point in time, we will document and do a modification to the grant. And if the grant is going to increase in cost or decrease in cost, we usually consult with the AOR for approval because they have approved a grant that was going to deliver certain milestones with certain targets. And then later on, when we start implementing, things cannot happen. We want to make sure that our client and our counterparts at USAID, the client know what is happening and they are in agreement with it. And also the grantee, we need to make sure that they justify very clearly the reasons why they cannot accomplish the milestone so it can be modified.
Great. Josh, anything to add to that?
Thanks, Jeff. I would just echo what Francia said about the process itself. I mean, some of the instances that I remember, firsthand was, political unrest or natural disasters or administration changes, things simple as that. You referenced health officials, and some of these things could be in flux. So some of the targets outside of anyone's control had to be revised. But yeah, as Francia said, we would just document that thoroughly and then make the case to the client to revise the milestone descriptions. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. So if I'd love to go to questions from the audience, and I'd like to encourage the audience, please add more questions to the Q&A section. Let me start with the first one. Were milestones a mixture of milestone deliverables against organizational development, capacity strengthening, and also milestone delivers against health service deliveries? Who would like to take that? I mean, the short answer is yes. It depends on the grantee. For our two grantees, I'm trying to remember. Alizar, does your organization, in addition to having technical milestones around the social accountability activities, did you also have capacity strengthening milestones?
Yeah, normally during the implementation process, we have got a lot of technical assistance from the NPI EXPAND. From the very beginning, they have conducted the organizational capacity assessment, and they tried to identify the gaps in the capacity of the grantee organization, Subawards for Social Development. Based upon the gaps identified, we have got lots of assistance or support. For example, we have taken trainings. For example, the grantee team taken like the grant and compliance requirement of the USAID projects training, to maximize the indirect cost recovery training. Again, the technical team are given training to social accountability and the community scorecard. Again, the administration department members are also given trainings related to leadership, project management, and the monitoring and evaluation related trainings are given to the teams. In addition to that, one of the gap identified during the organization capacity assessment was the resource mobilization strategy. And actually MSD do not have the resource mobilization strategy, but with the help of the NPI EXPAND, we have got the well-designed resource mobilization strategy. After that strategy is designed by an external consultant, we already set the action plan to start mobilizing resources from even the local sources. Again, in addition to that, currently we are working to digitize our office regarding the financial management, the project management, and others. So NPI EXPAND is helping us to digitize our accounting and project management system. So these are the different milestones we have been through regarding the capacity strengthening, and we are very much thankful for that.
Thank you. Aaron, I'm trying to remember, does C3 have some capacity strengthening milestones?
Thanks, Jeff. Yes. The capacity building actually for C3 is an ongoing process. So we have organization development as well as the capacity development of staff is a separate area where the budget has been allocated by the organization for capacity development of staff member, and it's also a part of our annual performance review process, where the performance is getting reviewed by the supervisor and their and the committee, and then recommendations are made for the capacity development of staff based on his or her work area. So it's an ongoing thing actually. So it's not a one-time thing; it's ongoing thing, and then it's being done on a year-to-year basis. And I have seen that many people have actually gained knowledge, not only because of their project, but about the subject line and about the area in which C3 is actually working on.
Right. Yeah. As a project globally, one of our intermediate results is capacity strengthening. So while it may not have been as much for these two grantees, we do have grantees whose entire, in addition to having a technical award, they also have a capacity strengthening award. And we have milestones defined around, as Alazar mentioned, things like preparing a resource mobilization plan, preparing a communications plan, instituting knowledge management software. So we do a lot of milestones around capacity strengthening. Let's move on to the next question. Is each milestone associated with a payment, and how is the best or average number of milestones per award determined? So first, maybe let me clarify on the first question. Normally, each milestone is defined by a payment, but there could be up to a handful of deliverables for a single milestone. And as I think Sonia mentioned, sometimes there can be problems if you have too many deliverables for a single milestone. So it'll just be milestone 1, in which they have to produce a training report, a number of other things. So that's one option that we took, but it can be tricky if you have too many deliverables for a given milestone. The average number of milestones, I don't know, Francie, what would you say? It ranges probably for a given award from what? Maybe 5 or 6 up to 12, or what's the?
That is correct.
Range?
That is correct. I was going to say between 6 to 10, 8 to 12, sometimes 15 milestone, depending on the length and the period of performance of the fixed amount subaward. So that also influences on the amount of milestone. Like you say, sometimes one milestone has more than 5 deliverables, and we would like to space that out for the grantee so they can have more time in delivering the milestone with the quality they are required in their fixed amount award. So I would say yes, between the most, I believe, is, well, we have some some extension and some modifications of fixed amount subawards that we have issued with 10 milestones, and then we do a modification to add more funds and more milestones to it. So it can go up significantly and depending on the period of performance. Of course, all of this is sent back to the AOR according to our prime award to follow compliance with our implementation.
Yeah, it's often this is also part of the art of designing these awards, because we try to look at things like the timing of the milestones, knowing that the only funding our awardees get is from the milestone payment. We do have to take into consideration how much operating capital they need. So we don't want to have too long a gap where they're not being paid for a milestone, because then they're going to run into cash flow problems. And we also tend to pay higher amounts on the early milestones, so they have some operating capital at the beginning to continue implementation. But so the spacing of the milestones is a factor. We also still run up against that 250,000 ceiling. So all of these are different factors we take into account in terms of the timing of the milestones. Another part of that question was, in these subawards, were there any other periodic reporting required beyond the milestone reporting? I would say yes, although actually sometimes periodic reporting was a milestone. In some cases, there would be a whole range of activities, and we sort of thought, well, we can't break this down to 20 different sub-milestones. So we said, let's pay them a milestone based on a monthly report that covers their progress against all of those areas. And we had a prescribed monthly report template. I'm trying to think, did we ever have quarterly or other types of periodic reports as milestones? Francie or Josh, can you think of any examples of those?
As a milestone in the fixed amount subawards that we issue, we have the final milestone to be a final report most of the time. The final report is the last milestone of the subaward. But I remember at the beginning of this program, the first perhaps 2 years, and when we were doing COVID-19 subawards, we asked the grantee to give us a monthly progress report 5 days after the month end. And that was for us to have a close monitoring of the activity since these were COVID-19 subawards. So yes, quarterly report, except for in Senegal, where we have some reporting under those fixed amount subawards, and you are more familiar with those, Jeff, in Senegal for the type of subawards that we issue there.
Yeah. Okay. There's a question here, is also follow-up on the milestone issues. With nascent organizations, have you faced challenges with milestones being submitted late? And if yes, how did you address this challenge? Who wants to answer that one? I think actually C3 and our Ethiopian grantees have been pretty good about being on time, but elsewhere it has been an issue. Francia, do you want to tackle that question?
Yes, we do encounter that with nascent organizations, and the what can I say? The mitigation to be able to deal with those is to be following up with these grantees on a weekly basis, or perhaps before the milestone is due, we will reach out to the grantee, talk to them, ask them if they need any other support to be able to submit the milestone on time, because they have a history of being late. And like Joshua mentioned in the presentation, we have a 2 weeks period for them. Let's say the milestone is due at the end of July. Well, will we give them until the 15th of August as a period where they can submit the milestone? Sometimes if the milestone is going to be late and they are going to be behind submitting the milestone, and that's going to create submission on cash flow, then we will have to issue a modification with a very well-documented justification why the milestone is late. But we try to work with the grantees, especially the ones that they are nascent, until they understand that for them to be paid, they need to submit a milestone on time so that their cash flow can continue and they can keep implementing the next milestone for the activity.
Great. So we have another question that's pretty broad, but also pretty important. So let me put this out. I think we're doing okay on time, but let's give this question its due. How did the granting process impact the capacity of the local organizations to become independent local partners to USAID with direct funding? So maybe let's turn that question to our grantees. Do you think the grants process that we went through with you all do you feel like it's helped make you a stronger organization and an organization that would be better able to have a direct award with USAID? I'll start with you, Aaron. You're on mute, Aaron.
Yes, Jeff. We have already done many projects with USAID, and some of them was in my previous organization, not with C3, but in my previous organization, we have done few projects with direct funding from USAID, and those were not actually fixed awards. But when I joined C3, and then there was fixed awards we got from not directly from USAID, but through some other agencies. And then because I was aware of the process of USAID even for direct funding, and the USAID and the fixed award requirements of USAID plus the other donors. So it was actually, for me, it was not that difficult to get it, and then I can bring those knowledge into the organization, and then I can say, okay, this is what actually USAID need at that point in time, so we need to be ready with that. So yes, that was helpful, and USAID has a very complicated process actually. So if you are totally new to a system, as a new grantee to USAID, I mean, you need to learn a lot. But since we have already dealt with USAID and the other donors who, so that makes it easier for us actually.
Great. Alizar, what about you? Do you think this granting process has better prepared you to become a direct recipient with USAID? Turn off your mute button, please.
Yeah. Yes. It helps. It helps us to see ourselves. Again, we know what are the requirements of the fixed amount award from the USAID perspective, and it helps us to be familiar with the requirements and what gaps needs to be filled by our service before we go for the application. And in addition to that, the capacity strengthening support we are getting from the grantor or the NPI EXPAND also helped us to be strong or active player in the industry, so that we will have the confidence to apply for any fixed amount award coming from in the future. So I believe the grant process helped us a lot in capacitating our service to be strong applicant for the future.
Great, thank you. If I can abuse my role as facilitator, I'd like to maybe also offer part of a response to that. I mean, on one hand, if USAID is going to issue cost reimbursable awards to our grantees, obviously work experience under an FAA doesn't necessarily prepare them for that. However, I think one of the things that we've done that's been a little bit unusual for a prime recipient and subawardees is that we did not design these programs all of our subawardees designed their activities and proposed a project design and proposed, what they wanted as milestones. So from that perspective, I think that process, which in some ways is sort of outside of the grants process, but it's just sort of the way that this program was designed. It certainly, I think that a lot of our grantees have said, they appreciated the fact that unlike some of their past experiences where they've been subawardees, where international organizations have said, okay, we want you to do X, Y, and Z, you're going to have a sub role in this. We basically went to our subawardees and said, here's what USAID wants. This is what's in their scope of work. Propose a design to us that addresses that scope. And I think that experience, probably even more than the granting experience, has helped a lot of our grantees to become good future prime recipients. Josh or Francia, do you want to add anything to that?
Jeff, I think you you expressed it well, and I think you are conveying the same message that we have. I think this program, NPI EXPAND, has worked with these nascent and also not so nascent organizations, and they have learned, and the capacity strengthening has been there. There's a lot of work still to be done with these organizations, and but I think that I absolutely agree with your statement, Jess.
Okay. Josh, anything to add?
Nothing from my end, Jeff. Thanks.
Okay. There's one final one. I think we have a little bit of time to get to it, going back to the milestone questions. Did the milestones include indicator targets? And if so, how did you and the grantees manage the payment in cases where the targets weren't met? Sonia, I think you experienced that directly. Do you want to describe what happened and what we did in that case?
Yeah, definitely, Jeff. Regarding the targets, yes, definitely. We face a challenge with one of our guarantee, they defined the targets too ambitious, and when they are working in the implementing geographical location and face certain challenges. Definitely, it is not in their control or not in our control, but yeah, they face the challenges, and due to those challenges, like as I already said, that sometimes in those particular states or implementing states, the elections comes, yeah, and due to the elections, code of conduct applied, and then they unable to perform the activities in the grounds. They will not able to conduct any trainings in that particular area. Due to that, the milestone was not completed before the due date, and if as we know that if the milestone was not complete before the due date, they definitely face a challenge for raising the invoice to the prime recipient, and maybe due to that they face fund challenges in their organization. Yeah, so yeah, this
Yeah, and as I
happened.
recall, yeah, and so they, as Francie described the process, they had to justify, why they couldn't meet the target, that they had made certain assumptions that proved not to be the case. And so we did a modification of the grant to adjust the milestone targets to what they could achieve. So, and that came up, more often than we would have liked, but that is one of the perhaps downsides of trying to specify very clear, specific milestones. Things do happen and assumptions sometimes don't pan out. So I think with that, we are at time. I want to thank our grantees for joining us and our field staff. I appreciate everyone, the participation, good questions, and thanks to everyone who joined. Thanks to Francia and Josh for all your leadership on our grants program, and we will continue to do more work in capturing our lessons learned and documenting these experiences. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.